Good morning. It's great to be here again. I'm Reverend Lori Fleming, and Faith was telling you that she's been speaking at other places. I just happened to be in Daytona Beach when she was there. She was amazing. She was so good. Don't tell her I said so. You're very fortunate to have her. So there was a group of people who were in Mensa, and they were having a convention several years ago. If you don't know what Mensa is, it's an organization for people who have IQs that are higher than 140, which means, of course, everybody in this room. Yeah. So a couple of the Mensa people decided to go to this little cafe across the street for lunch. And they sat down and they noticed that there was salt in the pepper shaker and pepper in the salt shaker. So being from Mensa, they knew that this was a job for them. They could figure out how to put the salt in the salt shaker and the pepper in the pep shaker with only what they had there at the table. So they talked about it and they postulated and they talked some more and they thought some more. Finally, they came up with a plan. And it involves using a napkin, a straw, and a saucer. So they called the waitress over because they were so proud of themselves for figuring out how to do this. And they said, "Ma'am, we don't think you realize this, but there's salt in the pepper shaker and pepper in the salt shaker." And they started to tell her what they were going to do. And she said, "Oh, okay." She took the lids off and switched them. There was dead silence at the Mensa table. So don't confuse IQ or even education with common sense. So this morning, my talk is entitled, "You're Wrong About Everything." Breathe, don't leave. It's going to get better from here, okay? What kind of assumptions have we been carrying around that just aren't true? What do you believe that might be erroneous? We make decisions all the time with the limited information that we have at hand. So how can we make it all right to be wrong about everything and still live a life of fulfillment and meaning and achieve our goals? Well, I'm going to tell you. You're wrong about everything. Have you been carrying around a belief that just isn't true? 600 years ago, people believed that the earth was flat, and if you got to the edge, you fell off. They also believed that the universe revolved around the earth, that we were the center of everything, and we know that's not true also. They believed that tomatoes were poison, and I'm so glad that they found out they're not, because I love to grow tomatoes, and I love to go out and pick them and eat them right off the vine. They're delicious. So we make assumptions about things all the time with the limited information that we have at hand. It's human, so it's okay, all right? Just want to say that. Just like those Mensa people. How many times have we made something more difficult just because we couldn't see the forest for the trees? Couldn't see what was right in front of our face because we were trying to figure out how to do it some other way. A while back, we were still living in Arizona, and my husband came home and he said, "Lori, remember that house so-and-so over there? They have a sign in front of them, and it said in the front yard, it says bed and breakfast." And I said, "That's interesting." So the next time I went by, I looked. Now, this is the house that loved Halloween. And they had a giant black furry spider on their roof with a big spider web coming down. They had ghosts floating in the trees. They had 3 witches with a cauldron over here with brooms. They had hay bales and corn stalks and pumpkins. And it was a huge, huge, amazing decoration. And right in the middle of the front yard was a sign. And it said, "Dead and breakfast." Not bed and breakfast. It was part of the Halloween decorations. We're wrong about everything. I love to work crossword puzzle. Anybody else like to work crossword puzzles in here? But if I read the clues too fast, or I misread the words, it's hard to get the answer, right? Like, say, for instance, the word is R-E-C-O-R-D. It could be record, like that black thing with the grooves in it you put on your turntable. Or it could be record what you did to make those grooves in the record. So if you don't read it right, it's really hard to get the word right in the crossword puzzle. I remember being in kindergarten. I was 5 years old, and the teacher was trying to teach us our right hand from our left hand. Now, I already knew my right hand from my left hand. And she said, okay, put out your right hand. Everybody put out your right hand. Can you humor me? Put out to the side. Okay. And she did this. And everybody went, oh. And I'm trying to figure out what was going on here because I really thought this was my right hand and this was my left hand. So I went home. I was afraid to say anything to her because, after all, I was only 5 years old. I went home and I said, Mommy, I figured it all out. How old are you when your hands change? When your right hand becomes your left hand and your left hand becomes your right? That's pretty smart for a 5-year-old. She didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, well, the teacher, her right hand is different than mine. And she said, Lori, hold out your right hand. And I did this. And she said, okay, I'll take care of this. So she called the teacher. And the next day, when the teacher stood up there, she said, everybody put out their right hand. And they put out their right hand. And she did this. Yeah. You're wrong about everything. There's a part in our brain called the reticular activating system. I call it the noticing factor. Its job is to screen all the data that we're taking in from our senses, what we see, what we smell, what we hear, what we touch, and to process that. It's the gatekeeper for everything that goes into our brain, and it's intended to keep us surviving without being hurt or injured or whatever. It takes all the information that's happening in a moment. It's faster than the speed of light. It's like that Sesame Street song, you know, some of these things are kind of like the other, some things are kind of the same. I think that's how it goes. Its job is to so quickly evaluate whether we're familiar with something or whether it's something we've never encountered before, and then act accordingly. For example, do we have a candle? Oh, candle here. If you put your finger in that flame, you know you're going to get burned, right? Because we've all experienced fire before. Nobody wants to get hurt. The reticular activating system tells us don't put your finger in the fire, so you pull your hand away. But what if we see a banana and it's blue? The reticular activist system tells us something is amiss here. You probably don't want to eat that blue banana until you ask a few more questions. Remember, I said we're wrong about everything, so be really careful here. It's possible that a blue banana is really good. It could be delicious, it could be nutritious. The opposite is also possible. So when we don't have all the information about something, we make stuff up, like I did to try to understand why our hands change when we're adults. I made that up. So what do we make stuff up? Well, somebody might say, blue bananas are poison, don't eat them. Another person might say, eat the blue banana, it'll give you superpowers. But if you ask enough questions about someone who knows about the blue banana, you'll get the information you need, and then you can make an accurate evaluation about whether you want to eat it or not, obviously. But what if you get on an elevator on the 15th floor, and the elevator stops on the 10th floor, you're the only one in it, and the person comes in, and the person's kind of sketchy, and the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and the next thing you know, you're standing in the lobby on the 5th floor, and the elevator doors are closing and going down, and you have no idea how you got there. You don't remember pushing the button, you don't remember the doors opening, you don't remember getting out of the elevator. That's when the reticular activation system kicks in. It's because it triggered your brain stem, this primitive part in the back of your brain. You might have heard it called the reptilian brain. It's associated with automatic reflexes, and it has to do with memory and learning. It remembers what you've seen and learns from that. It's the center of the fright or fight or flight reflex, which is why you did flight and got out on the 5th floor. That scary person triggered the reticular activation system. It immediately evaluated the situation, signaled there could be trouble, sent blood to all the extremities, which is why you can move so fast even though you don't even know what you're doing, and sent the signal to the brainstem. You ended up on the 5th floor when you didn't even think about it, possibly saving you from a bad situation, or maybe not. You don't know. It's automatic. You don't have any control over it. Maybe something like that's happened to you. When I was living in Arizona, I was on my way to church and at work, and I was driving on the 101, and it was pretty heavy traffic, moderate traffic, 55 miles an hour. I was in the middle lane. And all of a sudden, I slammed on my brakes so hard that I came up out of my seat. The seatbelt caught me before I hit the windshield, and there was a motorcycle laying on the highway. Car next to me had stopped. I didn't see that motorcycle come flying at me. I had no idea where it came from. Cars are still moving in this lane. I'm stopped. People behind me are stopped. I didn't get hit from the rear, thank goodness. I look over, and there's the person that had been on the motorcycle, full motorcycle suit, full space helmet, laying in a clump on the side of the road. I'm like, oh my God. And he jumps up, he leaps up in the air. I'm going, thank goodness he's alive, oh my gosh. But he can't step on his left foot. Evidently someone had forced him into the wall, and he had fallen off the motorcycle, and it went sliding across 2 lanes of traffic. So I got out of my car, and my left front wheel was literally a foot from just behind the front wheel of the motorcycle, where it would have gone over the gas tank. Now, I'll let you imagine what could have happened if I hadn't stopped. I literally do not remember seeing in my peripheral vision that motorcycle, nothing. But my reticular activation system saved me from what could have been a really terrible accident. Thank you, God. Yeah, really. You know, it happens so fast. When we were little children, our parents told us what to do, and for the most part, it was really good. They told us to say thank you and please. My little 6-year-old and 3-year-old grandsons now are doing really well with thank you and please. They taught us how to stand in line and wait our turn. They're still working on that one. So are some of you. I've seen you out there. You know, they told us not to run in the street because we'd get hit. They have one of those motorized Jeeps, and they play in the street. It's not a cul-de-sac, but it's a side street. And when a car comes, the moms yell, "Car!" and they run for the sidewalk. So good, yeah, it keeps them safe, right? Well, some of us learned what we learned from our parents was a product of their fears and their biases and their prejudices. Like my mother would tell me, we don't associate with those people of that other religion over there. Fortunately, I don't believe that anymore. My mother told me to always act like a lady, because otherwise, what would the neighbors think? Which was weird because she didn't even like the neighbors. What did she care? So I had to decide for myself how I wanted to act, and then suffer the consequences if I act inappropriately, just like the rest of us. My mother taught me to use the right fork for salad and the right fork for dinner because she didn't want people to judge me for not having manners. And I'm glad I learned that because it's embarrassing when you use the wrong fork. But the good news is that if I'm wrong about something, and I still am, and if in my innocence my behavior is inappropriate, I can learn from it, right? And I can apologize, and then everybody learns something from it. Anytime we're wrong about something, there's an opportunity for growth and experience and development. That's why it's okay for us to be wrong about everything. Some of the most difficult or stressful moments in our lives are our greatest teachers. Remember the first time you fell in love, and it felt so good, and you knew it would last forever. And maybe it did, but probably not. After we break up, we think, oh, I'll never love that way again. The rejection was more than we could stand. We're so sad. We're hurt at the very depth of our soul. It's so painful. And then we begin to doubt ourselves. Will we ever love again? Will anyone ever love us again? But before long, we meet someone. We take what we've learned from the first relationship, and we make our next relationship better, more happy, more whole. We were wrong thinking it would be forever. We were wrong thinking we would never love again. But as we go from being wrong about everything to being less wrong about everything. Each lesson along the way helps us realize that there are multiple rights for multiple people. Multiple rights for multiple people. That I can live my life differently from the way you live your life, and that's okay, that we can coexist. I think that's what makes us such a beautiful tapestry of different shapes and colors and textures and beliefs. I think that's a wonderful thing, because if you cook in a different culture than I do and you invite me to your house, I get to taste your culture and you get to taste mine. What beliefs are we entertaining that are not true? Think about it. What have we given meaning to because we didn't have all the information, and therefore whatever we believe about it or make up about it can't be true? Several years ago, I was teaching an evening class, and everybody had left the building, and I went to my office and left my stuff, and I went to go to the bathroom before I left home, and there was water all over the floor, and the little linoleum tiles were all peeled up on the corners, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I turned the water off to the toilet, and I mopped up the mess as best as I could, and I went back to my office, and I left a message for facilities about what happened. So the next day I came in, and the facilities lady came up and said, what in the heck happened in there? And I said, I don't know. I went in there, and there was water on the floor, so I turned the toilet off. And she goes, well, I can't believe that someone would let a toilet run over and not tell someone about it. Well, it took 4 weeks to renovate the bathroom, and there are a couple of good things that came out of that, because they put new ceramic tile down, and they painted, and they resurfaced the countertops. It was really pretty. And that's good thing that came out of it is I had to walk down the stairs to go to the other bathroom downstairs, so walking up and downstairs was good for me. And also, I was interacting with the people who worked downstairs, so it was great. So finally it was done, and she came and she said, I want to show it to you because it looks really good, and it did look really good. But for 4 weeks she'd been saying, I can't believe that whoever let that toilet run over didn't do something about it. So the toilet's fixed, everything's good. A couple hours later, I went into the bathroom, and there's water on the bathroom floor. And I'm like, seriously? So I called her, told her about it, went back to my business. A couple hours later, I went back in, and there's water on the bathroom floor. And I said to myself, I made this up, they're usually so good about doing this kind of stuff. I wonder why they didn't do something about it. And I realized that it was a smaller puddle of water, and it made me think, something's not right here. So I went over to the toilet, and I realized that the toilet was filling up with water and not stopping. And the water was coming out of the handle, drip, 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 on the floor. It wasn't that somebody left the toilet run over and didn't tell anybody, like she'd been saying for 4 weeks. It was a broken toilet. And until the toilet got fixed, it wasn't right again, because we're wrong about everything. What we believe creates our world. What we believe erroneously creates our world erroneously. What we believe erroneously keeps us from growing and learning. What we believe erroneously causes us to form opinions that may not be true. Do you believe that if you won $1 million in the lottery, you'd be happy? A lot of people do. Or do you believe that if you won $1 million in the lottery, you would be happier? There's a subtle difference, because I'm already happy now. Winning $1 million would be really nice, but I'm still already happy now. Becoming a millionaire might threaten our identity as much as losing all of our money. Becoming a famous rock star, which my husband always wanted to be, but he says that's okay because you can explain everything in life by the lyrics of a rock tune. Becoming a rock star could threaten our identity as much as losing our job. That's why some people are so afraid of success, and why some people are so afraid of failure. Both success and failure threaten who we believe ourselves to be at the very core of our souls. Fear of success or fear of failure takes us out of our comfort zone. even if our comfort zone is already uncomfortable? Are we afraid to do that thing that Spirit is calling us to do right now? Some of us are, but some of us aren't. Some of us are listening to Spirit, and we're achieving great and wonderful things. Are we afraid to do that thing that our soul chose to come here in this lifetime and do? Some of us are, some of us aren't. I know sometimes that inertia just keeps me from moving forward. Why do we avoid doing that thing that we've been dreaming about becoming? Is it because we're threatened because our identity would change? Most of us could not let go of our job during the day to pursue our passion of painting pictures because it wouldn't be practical or economical. We don't ask for what we want in relationships because we want to be nice, and we don't want to rock the boat. And, it is a relationship. It could end, blah, 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 blah. Do you believe that you can't do something? You're probably right, except you're not. How can we go from being wrong about everything to achieving our dreams and our goals? It's never too late for us. Don't let this gray hair fool you. We use the fifth unity principle, that action step. You've got to put wings on your prayers. You can pray all you want. You can ask for all you want. But if you don't go out and seek and knock and open doors, you'll never get it. I call this is very vain, I call this a Rev Lori's do something principle. It requires us to act on our dreams, because until you act on them, they're just dreams. Even when we're wrong about everything, there's an author who wrote 70 novels. That's a lot of books. When they asked him how he did it, he said, it's simple. I just sit down and write 200 crappy words every day. I can write 200 words a day, and I'm not even going to say crappy. He said, I never know where my writing will take me. As I write, Spirit reveals the next action in my book. Has that ever happened to you when you're up to something big, when you're creating something, and all of a sudden you have this flash of inspiration that comes to you? It's an aha moment like you've never had before, and you're like, that's it. That's exactly it. Forcing himself to write 200 words a day inspired him. And before he knew it, he had thousands of words, and he had another book. With Rev Lori's do something principle, being wrong becomes unimportant. Any result is regarded as progress and improvement because it moves us forward to a greater thing than we were accomplishing before, something positive, something creative, something juicy, something worth giving your time to, even if you have gray hair like me. With Rev Lori's do something principle, we see the inspiration as the reward for writing 200 crappy words, rather than the prerequisite. The inspiration comes because we take the first step. You only need to take one. That gives you the power to take the second one, because God will reveal the next one when it's time. Rather than having the prerequisite of writing 200 words, it propels us forward. We become free to fail, okay? And failure moves us forward. We become free to succeed, and success propels us forward like the turbo on a car. There's a lag when you put your foot on the pedal, but then it takes off. We begin to overcome procrastination. Everything that seems to be useless or meaningless now has meaning. When you use Rev Lori's do something principle, you start simple with that one step. And then you become your own source of inspiration because you've opened your heart and mind to the activity of Spirit that's already in you. Instead of believing that we're wrong about everything, can we use Rev Lori's do something principle? Okay, here's the homework. I mean, it's not going to work if you don't do it, right? It's practical Christianity. I invite you to think of something you've wanted to achieve. It doesn't have to be a giant thing like writing a book. One thing that you want to achieve, maybe write something, a poem, maybe paint a picture, get that sewing machine out, just sew on a button, I don't know. Walk an extra half a block if you walk in the morning. If you want to create a healthy eating plan, go to the Google machine. There are millions of recipes there, and they all tell you how many calories are in it and how much salt and sugar is in it. Before long, you could have a whole cookbook written. Find something to be inspired by, and God will do the rest. Just take that first step forward. Is always in the realm of possibility. By using Rev Lori's do something principle, takes us out of being wrong about everything and allowing Spirit to move in us and as us and through us, inspiring us. Before we know it, we will be living the life of our dreams. Thank you. Thank you.